Thank you for joining us here. You're watching India Tonight. I'm Nivedna Prabhu, and joining me on the show tonight is my co-host Sumita Karir. Clearly, we have a lot to discuss as far as what's really transpiring today. Let me put that into perspective. Given the aspect that US Senator Lindsey Graham has issued what many see as a direct threat to India, it's a warning that if New Delhi continues to buy Russian oil, the US would crush its economy. Now, these comments come amid growing American frustration with nations seen as financially supporting Russia during its ongoing war in Ukraine. But the tone and the fact that India was mentioned in the same breath as China has clearly raised eyebrows, Sumita.
Absolutely, Nivedna. In fact, Mr. Graham is no fringe player. In fact, a senior Republican senator. He's close to Donald Trump and chair of the powerful Senate Budget Committee. And his words, hence, they carry weight. But in seeking to strong-arm India, are American leaders undercutting decades of strategic partnership that they've had with India? As we unpack these comments, we ask, is this just Trump-style theatrics or a deeper shift in United States attitudes towards India? And how should India respond? To discuss some of those points and more, we're now joined by a stellar panel of guests. Joining us now on this broadcast live is Mr. Ashok Sajjanar, former ambassador, Vibhuti Jha, ex-Republican candidate for New York Assembly, and Mr. M.K. Surana, former CMD HPCL. Let me come to you first, Ambassador Sajjanar. What do you make of the tone and tenor of the US Senator's threat? Is it just political posturing, or is there an actual threat?
Thank you very much, Sumita. You ask about the tone and tenor, I think totally uncalled for. Because, India and the United States have a comprehensive global strategic partnership. That is not how you address your global partners. They have also mentioned, as you very correctly said, in the same breath, China and Brazil. Those relations are quite different from what they are with India. We have just heard the Brazilian President Lula say that, the world does not need an emperor. So, he's been hitting out at Mr. Trump. India has done nothing of that sort, and India's relations with the United States are very strong. I think basically what these people are doing, Lindsey Graham, he had put in a bill also in the Senate that 500% tariffs on countries that are importing oil from Russia. Basically what they are trying to do is pandering to Mr. Trump. And this is, they know what Trump wants to hear. And under these circumstances, because his basic fundamental objective is to try and get a halt on the Russia-Ukraine conflict. This is what Trump has decided might work. 6 months have elapsed. Nothing has worked so far. He has tried to cozy up to Russia. He's tried to reprimand and scold and castigate Zelensky. None of that has worked. So he's to come back to sort of supplying Patriot missiles, supplying weaponry and equipment to Ukraine. And he's given this 50 days notice to Russia. So I think to make it sound more credible, it's also what you heard Mark Rutte, the Secretary General of NATO, also voicing the same comments. So I think they are basically trying to, move closer to Mr. Trump. And India has said very categorically, we will cross the bridges when we reach them, because we don't ask our oil buyers to go to Russia and buy oil. We just tell them to go to the global market. Wherever they get a good deal, they get oil from there. And today we are buying oil from 40 countries. So, meaning if that is there, we'll see how we meet our energy requirements. Sumita.
Absolutely, Ambassador Sajjanar, as you pointed out, and like you also said, what has really stood out here, given the fact in the same breath that India and China are being mentioned. But let me take that particular point across to Mr. Jha. Mr. Jha, thank you also for joining us. But how do you explain a sitting US senator lumping India and China and threatening it economically? Because what kind of strategic ally uses the kind of language that's been seen here?
Thank you very much to both of you to welcome me back to your show again. And I wanted to say something different here. Two issues stand out. Mr. Lindsey Graham is up for re-election. And because of his previous statements that were anti-Trump, there was a move to set up a primary against him. So this man is trying to protect his seat. And he has a very uncanny ability to make a mountain out of a molehill. Remember, this particular conversation happened on a Fox weekly show where a 2-minute bite gained a global prominence. The issue here is very important. You might feel that I'm trivializing the issue, but I'm not. America doesn't like bullies. From Back to the Future to any movie you see, bullies get beaten back. And Mr. Lindsey Graham has a tendency to act like a bully. As a Republican, as an Indian American, as an American citizen, I will not defend this indefensible statement of Mr. Lindsey Graham, which puts Mr. Trump in a bad shape, makes him look bad. And I had opined several seasons ago that one thing Mr. Trump must keep in mind is while his issues may be very germane to the cause of America and MAGA, he must not appear a bully to the world around him. But that's the sad part. Lindsey Graham doesn't give a damn, to use the American slang. He is out to protect his own seat. Remember, he's introduced the bill, nothing happened. Not one senator has come forward, to my knowledge, who has supported his outlandish statement of calling that I will crush your economy. That's not how respectable senators talk.
Right.
And I dare say that Mr. Lindsey Graham has crossed his point. But what is important here to bear in mind, it all emanates from trade and commerce. Remember one thing, I want to throw another point, and I would love to hear from Honorable Ambassador, is that this is again an imperial and colonial mindset of EU that they are sanctioning India for, because I have the freedom to buy whatever I want from wherever I want. So he is totally way out of line here. And to put America in the same fashion as European, imperial and colonial design, that EU and NATO will threaten India for not buying something is absolutely ridiculous. There is no other word but to put it in that frame of reference from my point of view. Thank you.
Right, Mr. Jha. So when you talk about EU sanctions, let me also tell our viewers that the Foreign Secretary Vikram Misri today reacted on those EU sanctions and secondary sanctions that were proposed. In fact, he stated that we've made our view very clear on secondary sanctions and that energy security, it is the government's highest priority, and it's not important to not have double standards. It's important to have a clear perception in terms of broader energy market and who needs energy at what point. So this issue is not just about, geopolitical issues, but also about each country's own needs and requirements. But let me come to you, Mr. Surana, and thank you very much for patiently waiting for your turn. Of course, Mr. Jha was stating that America doesn't like bullies, but it actually acts like bullies. At least history is testament to that. But given that at the moment, this is coming in at a time when India and the United States are negotiating a trade deal now, a larger bilateral trade agreement, given the fact that there is deadlock that's persisting on agri and dairy, is that a strategy by the United States to push India to open up those sectors? And how are you anticipating India to react?
Yeah, thank you for inviting me to this session with the esteemed panelists here. The first part is there are two things which are going parallelly. One is the trade negotiation, which is the larger context. And the second thing is in relation to Russia and imposing the secondary tariffs. And of course, the parallel thing is the EU sanctions on the price cap of Russia and some of the vessels, etc., etc. Now, how these three things evolve depends on what are the fine prints in all the three. If the sanctions, if at all it happens, and on the import there is secondary tariff, is it only related to petroleum products or it is a larger context? If it is only related to petroleum products, then the issue is localized and to a lesser extent, and it may not affect India much because India may have the other markets to supply products to, and as such, out of the total context of the exports, the petroleum product context may be a smaller portion. If it is related to all other products, as if everything which is being imported in USA is subjected to those tariffs, then if this is to be applied, then the bilateral trade negotiations which are happening becomes meaningless. And therefore, I would probably tend to think that there is more a posturing and have a better negotiations along the lines as the tariff discussion happens. But the second part is that in a larger and multipolar world, whether this at all can be effected, because ultimately the oil is a commodity which is used by everybody and it is an international commodity. So when some barrels goes out of the market, it will affect the prices overall, which will not be in the interest of even US as well. And therefore, earlier when there were some sanctions imposed, India did continue to purchase Russian oil, and there was a tightrope diplomatic walk. And if I am sure that the same thing will happen this time also. And if that happens, then the Russian barrels
Mr.
remain.
Surana, sorry to
Some
interject you
of
there,
the-
but isn't it hypocritical for the US to in fact target India's trade with Russia when, European countries themselves continued importing Russian energy long into the war? Where was the threat then of this sort of language to Germany or of France? Because on the other hand, while you of course draw that into perspective, Indian refineries have recalibrated operations around discounted Russian blends. So would a sudden U-turn under US pressure at some point disrupt not just supply chains but also pricing structures? So there's a lot to be looking at. Also, given how this has been transpiring as well?
No, the refineries buy it based on a techno-economic analysis of the crude. And that happens even the Russian crude which we are buying. Basically, the discounts on the Russian crudes basically takes care of the additional freight cost which we have to pay. So even tomorrow, if there are any additional tariffs, again that economics will come into picture. And the refineries will buy what is most economical for them. And that is what the country should also do. And therefore, I am saying that just a narration or a statement won't make a difference. It is the fine prints which matters, and the refiners and the country has to do the techno-economic analysis on the buying of the crude. As far as India is concerned, we are well diversified now as far as our sources are concerned. Just 3 years back, we were buying only 2% of crude from Russia. So currently, because it is economical, there is the basket is bigger, it is 35%. So as far as supply is concerned, there is no issue.
All right, Mr. Surana, let me come to you, Ambassador Har. Now, let me go back to the point that Mr. Jha was mentioning, and he stated that this is mostly political posturing, and what the senator is doing essentially is to woo to the domestic voter base. But would you agree with what he's saying, especially when the US looks at China and India? Is this not something that the United States is strategizing at this moment with respect to looking at India and China in the same breath, especially when he's castigated Xi over the tariffs issue, but spoken about his good friendship with Prime Minister Modi, but keeping tariffs as a separate strategy? Do you think this is not really the strategy of the United States at the moment to look at India and China in the same light?
No, absolutely. I don't think that they are putting both the countries in the same basket. I think India is a very different cup of tea as compared to China. There are many more problems that the United States has with China, and there are many more convergences that the United States has with India. So, it is my view, and, I could take on board what Mr. Bhuti Jha has also said as far as Lindsey Graham's own election is concerned. But basically, I feel that he is, trying to cozy up, trying to sort of, put himself in a better light as far as Mr. Trump is concerned. And, talking about bullies, I agree with you, Sumita. I think you are the one who mentioned that, the United States is known to behave like a bully. It's, the last 40, 50 years against different countries. So, and Mr. Trump has taken this attitude and this behavior to a whole new level. The way he, issues threats more severe and more virulent against his allies than against his adversaries. So I think that bullying is very much there. But if you also permit, Sumita, what Mr. Jha mentioned, that it is the imperial strange attitude of the European countries. But there, let us face it, that as far as what Mr. Mark Rutte said, he was really paraphrasing what he had been told by Mr. Trump in his meeting in the Oval Office with him, that 50 days to Mr. Putin. If he doesn't agree, then we are going to sort of put this 100% tariffs on all other countries. This statement was,
Absolutely, Ambassador
much
Sajjan,
above
have
his
to
pay
interject you
grade.
there, but you make pertinent points given the viewpoint that Mr. Jha also had earlier. Mr. Jha, let me come to you. Given the fact that even how the conversation right now was about America being a bully, and the right opposite of that would be, a friendly alliance. Given the fact that, how would you look at that? Are Republicans really friends with India, given the kind of language that we're looking at? And now also in tandem with, do Americans now like politicians who perhaps, downplay India or abuse India? Is that the
Thank
narrative
you
that's
very
being
much.
built?
Yes, that's very important. You talked about use the word narrative. It is time for India to recreate its own narrative. What do we want? What are our terms and conditions? To use the Ramayana language, what is our Lakshman Rekha that you can't cross? So, for example, insofar as trade is concerned, I am of the opinion that India must not yield or secede or capitulate to demands for agriculture imports or exports. I am of the firm opinion of that. I have opined, and I said yesterday, that India must tell Donald Trump that we want to become the organic food basket of the world. Certain areas, yes, we will collaborate, but not on food grains. I'm wearing a nanotechnology shirt. It's so damn light, is so light that I can put it in a suitcase and you won't even catch it won't capture the space. So there are areas on which you can collaborate. There are areas we will not. That's what Trump is asking for. When he's talking about reciprocity in trade tariffs, he's saying, tell me what you want, I'll do what I want, you do what you want. He's not imposing something on that from that side.
Right.
It's important for India to draw its own line and lay down my rules of the game. I want to quote two issues of Mr. Trump's negotiation strategy. He says it very openly that sometimes you walk away from a fight to move to something more productive. He is only asking for that. How do you make my life easier? By doing this. The second element that he said something very important, that sometimes losing a battle is important because you will find another way to win the war. We have to think about the man's thinking ability. He is actually a hustler. I have no hesitation in saying so, and Trump will be happy to hear I called him a hustler, because he knows I will make my demand. Let me see how much you concede or where you stand up for. So as a Republican, I'm telling you this. Republicans are usually and always much better for India, provided we lay down the terms and conditions of negotiation. What is it that I want? That's all they want. And I have been here since 91, championing India's liberalization program where we had no story to tell. Their mindset is very clear. Make me money, you are my buddy. That's very simple. And we must not miss that opportunity.
Right, sir.
Yeah.
Right, sir. But the way these threats that are being doled out to allies, that certainly is not the way. And of course, every inch of diplomacy, it seems, has been thrown out of the window. Mr. Jha, but Ambassador Sajjan, now let me ask you, how do you think India is going to react to these kind of statements and, of course, this, coercion that's being extended by the United States side? And second part of this question is the fact that at this point, can the United States afford to issue such threats, especially looking what's happening on the deals front and the deadlines getting pushed, and allies themselves are now hitting back at the U.S.?
Yeah, very important points you make, Sumita. You're right. I think what Mr. Trump feels is that he can get away with it, number one. That is why he's issuing such threats. And he feels that by issuing such threats, he'll be able to get, better deals for the United States. We know that, the 1st of August is just around the corner. He's been able to get just 4 or 5 deals. Whether it's with the United Kingdom, Vietnam, China, Indonesia, nothing else. India is standing firm. Exactly, what Mr. Vibhuti Jha said. I think that is why we have not had an announcement of the nature of an agreement that US has with Indonesia. We are not willing to sort of, give in to GMOs, give in to dairy, give in to agriculture. Those are the red lines. And I think that has been communicated to the United States. That's why after 5 rounds of negotiations, we have not had a final deal. Now, what should India be doing in the face of these threats that are coming from there? I think, take them in its stride. You know, we know that there is an abundance of oil on the global markets. So we can sort of, you know, if these threats come, at the time concerned, we will go to the global market and meet our requirements, whatever 5 million barrels per day plus that we are consuming. So I don't think we are in a corner. But, you know, if it helps them to make this threat, China is a much bigger importer. We've also spoken about hypocrisy and double standards because their NATO member, Turkey, is importing oil and gas from Russia. Hungary, Slovakia, these are countries that are importing from you know, Russia. Last point, if you permit, you know exactly what Mr. Bhutija said. You know, I have negotiated on trade matters with the United States in the GATT and WTO for the last 40 years. You know, this is not only Trump's strategy, this is the US strategy. Start with 100% demand and finally come down to 10% and sign a deal at 10%. I've seen this happen. It has happened umpteen number of times, whether it was on intellectual property rights, it was on investment measures, it was on services, it was in agriculture. That is what the United States does. And I think let's be prepared for that.
Right, and you know, time is only going to tell how this is going to pan out, Ambassador Sajanhar. But Mr. Jha, circling back to what you initially said, in fact, that line, make me money and I'll be your buddy, given the kind of alliance and strategy or friendship rather that we're looking at, taking a cue from what you've said and how this is panning out. You know, is this, Mr. Jha, part of Trump-era economic nationalism, where power, in fact, is projected not through diplomacy, but through tariffs of, threat of tariffs rather, sanctions and economic leverage? And will that actually go on to pay in the longer run?
Thank you. You know, one thing is very important. You remember James Carville, who gave Bill Clinton the statement, "Is the economy stupid?" We all know that the strength of a country derives from your economic power. For years, and I can tell you that I'm angry about it, because I came here to champion India's liberalization program, and I found total apathy from the Congress rule government. Ever since then, they forfeited what language that we use in economics. The opportunity loss of India is huge for not doing certain things, as Mr. Sajanhar also was talking about. We have to remember, where is our line? What do we want? So the issue here is very critical. You make money, friendship is all about how good are you with me. Let's put it very simple terms. This is what is critical for us. We have forever been known as a socialist country, a Russia ally, but we never pointed out to America. When America tells India that you can't be doing business with Russia, my question to the American system is, well, if you are sleeping with if you are choose to sleep with the enemy, like Pakistan, who I dare say that in the same polite words, if Pakistan is my enemy and you are sleeping with your enemy, you have forfeited the right to advise me who I am friends with. And I say this to Republicans, I say this to everybody. Unless and until you mend your terms of dealing with my enemy, you are free to deal with my enemy. Don't tell me who I deal with. This is the equivalence you established. This is the line you draw. So the point of the matter here is very simple. This is a golden opportunity for India, and I would suspect, I would be very happy when, I was very happy when Mr. Jaishankar had announced that India will show more of a muscle diplomacy, and I hope in this spirit he will convey a message to Mr. Lindsey Graham, one more time, and I will sanction you. India will sanction you, Lindsey Graham, the senator. Let's have some fun. There are times when you need to have some fun. And I suspect, I see the smile on Mr.
Right.
Sajanhar's face. And, you know, yeah, let's have some fun with that. Not. Sanction Lindsey Graham.
So
Maybe
we're
I will
already
tweet that.
having some, actually, because, right.
I'm
So
going
we
to
are
tweet that
already
today,
having
actually.
some, given the fact that India has proposed some sanctions with respect to reciprocal tariffs with respect to what the United States has imposed on steel and aluminum. So a little bit of fun is already happening at the level of the WTO with these proposals. But let me come to you, Mr. Surana. Even though India says that energy security is going to be its highest priority, will India at some point in time be looking at perhaps budging in? Will India realistically, do you think, reduce its dependence on Russian defense and energy, at least in the near term?
No, I'll put it this way that actually it is not a dependence on Russian crude. We are buying Russian crude because it is technically and economically advantageous for the country. And the country and the
Yes.
refineries will continue to follow that practice. So as far as from whichever country in the world it is economical for us, we will buy. And I think the government has also stated the same positions that the national energy security is the most important, and country will continue to buy. And in that realm, we have to negotiate the things to best possible things to avoid any collateral damages or impact. Otherwise, I don't think that the energy security part can be compromised for any other issues which may crop up in the system.
Right. Thank you very much, Mr. Surana. I couldn't catch the last bit of what you said, but definitely India needs to look at its own interests and definitely not bow down to any sort of bullying that's happening from the West, because as External Affairs Minister Dr. S. J. Shankar very recently said that the Europe thinks that, or the West thinks that its problems are the world's problems, but definitely that's not the case. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for joining us here on ET Now and taking the time out to share your perspectives on this big story that we're tracking here on the channel. Meanwhile, ladies and gentlemen, let's now shift our focus and look at how trade on Wall Street is shaping up. Well, earnings sentiment has gripped the Wall Street. Tobacco giant Philip Morris's Q2 revenue has missed Street's estimates, and the stock is tanking away on the back of that. In fact, cigarettes, which are the company's primary growth drivers, are in decline. In fact, another company or investor's radar is General Motors. The auto major beat Street's expectations in the second quarter, but Trump's 25% auto tariffs have impacted the company's operating income, and 1.1 billion, in fact, a net income of the company slipped 35% on a year-on-year basis. In fact, the management also said that tariff headwinds, they continue to threaten the bottom line.
All right, that is what Wall Street was looking like. Like Sumita just put that into perspective, but what did the Indian markets look like? Let me tell you, because the benchmark indices gave up all the early gains to end in the red, and Nifty ended flat with negative bias at 25,060 levels, led by fall in PSU banking names. In fact, all sectoral indices too ended in the red, but Eternal was one of the few outliers in trade, gaining over 14% in intraday trade as investors clearly cheered quarter one earnings. My colleague Rabinder joins in with more details.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm afraid we don't have that link just yet, but we'll be getting you more details on the other side of this short break. In fact, after the break, we'll also be looking at this big story that we're tracking. This is coming in after a parliamentary panel has cleared controversial provisions in the new income tax bill that's allowing tax officials to forcibly access private emails and social media accounts during investigations. Is this a blow to privacy or a boost to enforcement? We ask some of those questions right after this short break. Stay tuned.
Andrew?